Good day, YouTubers. It's October 2016. It's yet another unseasonably dry and sunny day. The weather has been better than for most of the summer. So, being a Sunday, that can mean only one thing. It's time for some more car repair. Right, so yeah, today is going to be a nice, hopefully, well in theory, quite a simple, straightforward job. Shouldn't take more than an hour at the most. I'm going to be replacing the fuel injector harness. And this is it here. Fits under the rocker cover. And each of these attaches to its own individual fuel injector. 5, because it's a 5-cylinder engine. And this end here is attached to the plug that's under there. So, without further ado, I'll get started. Right, first job is to remove the 3 13mm bolts. There's one this side and there's 2 that side, and they're I've had this cover off several times already, so I know that it comes off okay. I think because it's so high up in the engine bay and subjected to a good amount of heat most of the time, chances of these bolts ever being seized up are probably quite slim. And luckily, it only takes a few turns and you can get them out by hand. Only short little stubby things there. And the bolts are out. And then we remove the cover, being careful not to catch the dipstick. And that's the cover off. And these are 8mm bolts, and I'm just using a little socket. I had this one for years. It's a little Halford's 1/4-inch socket, just an extension. And the socket set, I'll just show you these. All these 1/4-inch sockets, they're very good quality. Got them from B&Q of all places. It's their McAllister brand. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We still sell them. 1/4-inch sockets, and they're good. They don't wear or anything. £10. Couldn't believe it. So I thought, well, I'll have that. Yeah. So I shall get untightening. Just loosen them off. Bit more tricky getting to the back there, so I'll take an extension off and just the shorter one. Yeah, access at the back is slightly less, but still get to it. You have this cover at the back, which when it comes to refitting, we'll have to just sort of prop it out the way so that we can get the rocker cover back on whilst keeping the new gasket in place. So I'll now just take these bolts out by hand, and then once these are out, I'll remove the clip off there so we can take this pipe away. They come out, it's a bolt. There's a rubber sealing washer. Need to just check the condition of that, make sure it's not split or perished, and looks very good. So I shall just whip all these off. These bolts at the back, they're a bit of a faff to get out. So what I'm doing is I've got just the socket on there, and I'm just very carefully turning the socket because I don't want it falling off. Like so. You'd think when they'd done this, if they just fitted the engine like 1 inch further forward, and there is room, then you could have avoided this problem. Still, I didn't design it. Right, and then out she comes. I'm going to leave the two inserts and seals in the back. I don't want to risk getting them out and then falling down the back, so they should stay where they are. Now we'll remove the hose clip. Just use a large pair of pliers. These pliers I've had for 20 years. I was driving along one day in a works van and these were lying right in the middle of the road. So I just stopped, got out and grabbed them, and the amount of times I've used these pliers, you would not believe. They do everything. There we go, that's off there. Put that on there. This is where we find out this is probably the most difficult part of the job. No, it twists, that's alright then. It turns. I shall move that along a little bit more. Just stay here. Oh, come on. There we go. Right. I shall put that somewhere. Just under there. There we go. And now we come to the moment. Very gently. Oh, it's quite loose. They don't really provide any sort of pry points, so you just got to be very careful you don't damage any faces and things. Yeah. Okay. Let's hope there's no locating dowels getting in the way. Push that out the way there. And away she comes. Yeah, so that's off, and the first thing I always like to do when working on engines, or any mechanical stuff, is give everything a good clean up. So it's just basically oil, but it's all over the mating faces, so I'd say the gasket, the rubber, silicon, whatever, rocker gasket was on its way. So the kit I've bought comes with a nice new rocker cover gasket. Yeah, it's a beer mac, you pronounce it. German Land Rover parts manufacturer. So as they say, well, it must be alright if it's German. Yeah, so everything's a nice clean up there. I shall go over it once more when I come to refitting, just to make sure there's no raised bumps and so on. Yeah, very nice. Being careful not to get any car in the engine itself. Now, we'll begin by removing this plug here. That came off surprisingly easy, and not surprisingly it's full of oil, which is exactly what we're avoiding here by changing this. Okay. Right. We'll remove each of these. This looks like it's the original, by the way. The wiring's quite hard. And it looks like original Land Rover sort of colours and so on. So take each of these off, press the metal doodah in, and off she comes. Like so. Alright. That's the old thing off. The seals are very flat and crazed, so that's one of the reasons these things leak. Yeah. Quite flat against, in line with the whole thing. Whereas you compare the new one, if it'll focus there, much fatter. Right. Okay, so I've cleaned up everything there, and I've given it a spray and a clean in here to get rid of any traces. You'll find some blue sort of rings, which are bits of the old O-rings. Now fit the new one in the hole. I imagine this will be probably a bit of a tight fit. Ooh. Not half. Ooh, blimey. Yeah. Well, this is incredibly tight. Just get it out again. Right. The first one goes in fine. Oh, this one doesn't want to. Wow. It's not caught on there. And might have to go for the old rubber mallet routine. So, rubber mallet, make sure it's nice and clean, as clean as can be, only a rubber mallet. There we go. Now we're cooking with gas. Okay, we're there. Let's give these holes in the plugs a spray with contact cleaner. This will wash off any crud on the actual connectors. Okay, and then I'll reattach it. There we go. All on there. As far as I can tell. Okay. So there. So we'll now attach the new connectors to the injectors. Connectors to the injectors. I'm a poet and I don't know it. They all go in their own order. Impossible to get them on the wrong ones. And then we get those in there. That's the theory. This could be interesting because these don't want to stay put. What I've done here then, to keep this down as much as I can so it's sitting flat to put the cover back on, I've put a bend, I've basically squeezed very gently the wires like that. I've put a bend in each of the wires, and that's taken the lifting spring out of the wires themselves. Yep. Right, we'll come now to refitting the rocker cover. And I've got my new rocker cover gasket. Now, the main problem really is the back, because you can't see what's going on, and it's so tight to get this in there that it's more than likely going to knock the rocker cover gasket off. So to give me the best chance possible, I'm going to apply some instant gasket all the way around, just a thin kind of bead. Not much choice really, because this stuff I've had a while, and the very end of the tube is all dried up. Right, so I've applied instant gasket all the way around, and I've got the new gasket in place, and I'm going to leave that for about 10 minutes to just set slightly, and then we'll attempt to put it in place. And 10 minutes is always a good excuse for a cup of tea. Right, we come to the refitting now. The instant gasket has set a reasonable amount. Now, to give me every chance that the gasket's not going to fall off when I try to fit it, I'm taking the inserts, giving them a good clean up, get the oil off, and then fitting them in. And because it's a new gasket, the holes are tighter and they're gripping the inserts so they haven't fallen out, and that should hopefully be enough to keep the gasket in place. So we come to the actual refitting. I have to be very careful not to disturb the gasket at all. No idea whether this is going to work or not. So far so good. Like I said, the cover at the back is the main problemo, which I think we're starting to get there. So it's on at the front. For some reason, the back doesn't want to know. The shield is clear. This very peculiar arrangement. This is very poorly designed. Normally you do it so that the rocker cover gasket sits in a channel in the cylinder head, and then you place the cover on top, but for some reason the channel is in the rocker cover. So not very good. Not very good at all. Well, it would appear that it's on there. It's yeah, I do believe it's on there. It's very difficult to tell around the back. I think, I mean, looking at the gasket here, and shining a torch right the way, lifting up the cover at the back and shining a torch in the big semicircular blob of rubber at the back is sat in its space, so I do believe it's on there. I'll soon find out when I start it, if loads of oil comes pouring out. Mind you, visibility is so poor. How can one tell, as they say? And I can feel rubber in there. Rubber. I feel rubber there. Yeah. So I believe it's there. So I shall put the fittings back in. Right, so I've done up all the bolts finger tight. And now, according to the manual, they have to be done up to 7 foot-pounds, but that's very light, especially for this old torque wrench, so I'm going to do them to 10, which isn't going to make a blind jot of difference really. So I've got a 1/4 inch to 3/4 inch adapter plugged into a 3/4 inch to 1/4 inch. No, I've got a 1 inch to 3/4 inch and a 3/4 inch to 1/4 inch on a 1/4 inch extension with my 1/4 inch socket on the end. And it doesn't say in the manual anything about tightening sequence, but the old school way is to do it all diagonally. And that way you can avoid any sort of distortion, especially if you're doing a cylinder head. So you way diagonally, you do this one, then you do the opposite diagonal corner, and then I do that one, and that one, that one, and that one, then that one and that one, and then those two at the back, which will be the most difficult out of the two, of course. And of course, once you've gone round and torqued them all up, you just go along and just make sure everything's still there. And that's all of them checked. Right. Final job, reattach the hose, which goes on a lot easier than it took to come off, like so. There you go. Like I said, bad design is a bugbear of mine, especially when it's been clearly done by someone who hasn't given a moment's thought for anyone who might have to work on the vehicle in the future. And my initial impressions with the TD5 is it's a lot more difficult to work on than the 300 TDI. Even changing the oil filter, getting to it is a bit of a nightmare. But it's all done. So I'll quickly clear up my tools and then we'll start it up. Alright, we're all set. Everything's back together. Quick double check. Everything's on there, all tightened up. Hose is on. I'll leave the engine covers off for now so I can see if there's any oil or so on leaking out, which hopefully there won't be, so let's fire it up. I don't want to find out this injector harness is a dud. looking around, see if there's any oil leaks. Well, I think we can hopefully call that another successful job. Seems as dry as a bone round the back, which it should be. Obviously there's no way of telling whether the gasket's sealed properly, but I assume you wouldn't be able to fit the rocker cover on if the gasket wasn't in place. Yeah, looks very good. Right, there you are. I'm going to put the covers back on, and then I'm going to go and enjoy the rest of my Sunday. So, have a good weekend.